Today's video is sponsored by Dungeon Fog. Map making has come a long way from sketching out dungeons on graph paper. Now, thanks to Dungeon Fog, I can save hours of valuable time planning and making my adventures. The cloud-based platform dynamically generates Game Master notes based on maps that are drawn with its online editor. Dungeon Fog also allows RPG enthusiasts to share maps with friends and the community, invite other players to join their games, and play maps they've created, and print, download, or export maps with GM notes. Dungeon Fog has over 3,000 preset choices for props, filters, and textures, with the option for GMs to upload their own, so you can create maps that will fit any setting. Fantasy, sci-fi, cyberpunk, whatever your players feel like exploring, you can create. Create, share, play, and print beautiful maps with dynamically generated GM notes. Check out www.dungeonfog.com/allthingsdnd to start building maps for free. Promo code allthingsdnd for a 10% discount on all annual subscriptions. Now what you're here for. How I remind my party that not everyone they fight is a mustache-twirling villain. Hi everyone, All Things D&D is back with 2 stories. Making good BBEGs is actually hard, or at least it is for me. Creating a villain with an interesting motive that isn't be evil or take over the world is tough. These 2 stories highlight cool ways to make villains interesting and real. Tell us about your awesome villains after listening to this. Be me, Pathfinder 2e DM on Roll20, because Foundry's expensive. Be my players, Gobbo Monk, Aasimar Paladin, Human Fire Oracle, Elf Sorceress, Human Sniper, DMPC Plot Coupon Support Bard. Been a while since I actually challenged them. Decide their next fights will be against higher level DMPCs built using the same rules they were, namely free archetype. Their first opponent, Coral Tannenhall, Mercenary, Gunslinger with Sniper Specialization, and the Snare Crafter archetype. The more I plan this encounter, the more I worry about a TPK. Make a contingency for that. Playtime. The party attacks an old fort held by Coral's mercs. Party discovers to their detriment that the perimeter of the fort is trapped. Does a number on a few party members. Mercs are riflemen. Deal good damage to the party from the cover of the fort's parapets. Gunslinger starts talking shit. Keep consistently critting the gunslinger every time he does. Start posting screenshots of the secret DM rolls just to show I'm not fudging. It's not the first time he's become a crit chew toy after trash talking either. Anyway, party eventually takes down all but 2 mercs, though several characters are at dangerously low HP. The 2 mercs book it because this isn't Skyrim, and they know when they're outmatched. They get chased down and carried into the fort's courtyard. They grill them for intel while the paladin heals the party, since obviously Coral wasn't there. Paladins can heal a party to full given enough time when outside of combat. This is confirmed by design, and actually really helps in counterbalancing and planning. They say their boss is out hunting. Bullet hit the monk, dealing a good chunk of damage. Came from the parapet. Party looks over to see a feminine figure with a rifle jump off the parapet to the other side. Party pursues into the forest, with Coral pausing to take a shot at a character every so often. Party is lured into an area Coral has trapped to shit, in preparation for a fight, is waiting at an advantageous position. Coral, unlike most of my players, has a healthy appreciation for consumables. She's hopped up on haste and greater invisibility potions. Players still get spot checks to see her, cause I ain't a douche canoe. A few notice her. Paladin discovers to his dismay that Coral has put traps around the only non-tree piece of cover. Monk moves to flank, uses Key Rush to close a huge distance in a single round. On the battle map's DM layer, I stare at the monk's chosen path in disbelief. I need you to roll me 3 reflex saves. Monk failed 2 of them somehow. The damage dice were not so unimpressive. Monk is within a single move of Coral, but is also very nearly down. Most of the party is able to keep decent tabs on Coral for the duration of the fight, and deal good damage to her despite the mischance. Better than expected. Fight comes down to Coral grappled by the monk, flanked by the ranger's pet. Paladin gets an attack on the highly mobile invisible enemy for the first time in the combat. Brings her HP down to single digits. She has a bleeding dot from the monk's tiger stance. Perfect. Describe that the paladin's blow, filled with righteous fury, descends towards the nearly unseeable woman, who brings her rifle up to block the blow. With a flash of magical energy, his sword cleaves her weapon in 2, but prevents the blow from being lethal. Coral is able to break the grapple next turn and books it. This has been a long, frustrating fight. Party is out for blood. Don't you run from us. Thanks to the haste potions, Coral quickly outpaces the party's ability to track her. But tracking her is easy since she's bleeding badly. Party eventually catch up to her. Set the scene. The ranger can see her up ahead, no longer invisible, sitting against a tree facing away from them. She seems to be writing something in a book, glancing up every so often. A perception check reveals that she's looking up at a snowy owl every so often. She finishes writing, closes the book, rests one hand on top of it, and starts moving. Party approaches in a fashion befitting those who have just had a fight against an invisible sniper who makes traps in her spare time. Party has switched from out for blood to caution. The closer they get, the more obvious it is that she's died from blood loss. Paladin picks up the book. Old journal has old and new bloodstains on it. Paladin checks the last page with writing in it. It's not writing. It's a talented, if rushed, sketch of a snowy owl. Paladin goes to the first page. It's the diary of a young girl, chronicling her life growing up on a farm. Oracle takes the journal. They take her body and head back. Oracle reads the journal on the way. The kid seems smart, but struggles with the writing aspect of the language. Loves birds. There are a few very childlike drawings of birds she's seen. She keeps a wish list of birds she wants to see. A few are checked off. Perception check. The Oracle sees that not all the check marks were made by the same hand as the journal progresses. The bird drawings keep getting better. Mentions that her mother is helping her learn to draw better. The journal eventually takes a turn, as it becomes evident that there are things going on she can't quite grasp yet. Last entry says that people at the market are saying the fighting's getting closer, and Mom and Dad are arguing about whether to stay or pack up and leave. Next few pages have bloodstains, but after that there are beautiful sketches of birds, ones that a quick cross-check reveals are on the wish list. Last one is the snowy owl. Paladin notices 2 wedding bands on a string around Coral's neck. As he carries her body, Party decides to give her a proper burial. Don't even loot her. Return trip is quiet. Am I a bad person? I hope the DM in this next story uses this encounter to create his BBEG, because sometimes it's the enemies we make along the way. Alright, so this happened a few days ago. Our party was composed of a dragon-born barbarian named Ixkan, a half-elf ranger named Brianna, a half-elf sorcerer named Tristan, and me, yet another half-elf fighter named Alistair. The story begins with us tracking down a serial killer that goes after bards and takes their eyes, and our most recent lead had taken us to a high-class wedding happening in a nearby town. We got there and immediately started brainstorming ideas for infiltrating the wedding, which was happening the next day. Tristan wanted us to infiltrate the party by pretending to be nobles, while Ixkan argued we would blend in better as bodyguards. We were discussing the specifics of each plan until I got my own idea. Why don't we just steal some invitations, I asked. Everyone agreed immediately. So we went to where the nobles who had arrived early were staying, a camp near town. We discussed a plan of action and eventually came up with this. Tristan and Brianna would sneak in, with the sorcerer lighting a controlled fire in one of the tents as a distraction, while the rangers stole the invitations we needed. All the while, Ixkan and I would hang back, since we didn't have stealth modifiers. Easy, right? We thought so too, until Brianna and Tristan rolled a 9 and 8 in their respective stealth checks. They were caught immediately by the guards, though thankfully Tristan managed to persuade them that he was a noble and that Brianna was his servant. The problem is that they're now stuck there and can't do anything without it being suspect. And now we get to the point where things really go down the toilet. My character, Alistair, starts to get worried about the two not coming back and makes the decision of doing the thing himself. He takes off his armor and weapons and leaves them in the care of the barbarian before trying to sneak in. Halfway in, I find a noble taking a leak outside his tent. The DM asks me to roll for stealth. I get an 11. The guy notices me and draws his sword, asking who I was. In a panic, I did the first thing that came to mind. Me, I want to knock him out. DM, okay, sure, make a strength check, please. It should be noted that our rolls in this particular session had been rather cursed so far, with constant 5s and 8s and none of us getting anything above a 15. So I, and the rest of the party, thought that I was pretty much dead, given that I'd left my weapons and armor behind. And then it happened. A nat 20. So I dashed straight at the man who's too scared by my rush to put his sword up. I raised my fist and Superman punched him straight in the temple, knocking him out instantly. The table erupted in laughter. No one could believe that it actually worked. But now there I was, standing over a knocked out noble in the middle of a camp surrounded by guards, none of which had taken notice, thankfully. Next thing I did was to strip him of his clothes and put them on to try and infiltrate the camp. But that plan was soon thrown out the window when from one of the tents came out a lady looking for her husband. The same husband who was now on the floor unconscious, undressed, and with a half-elf standing over him wearing his clothes. She panicked, which made me panic, and so I did the first thing that came to mind: intimidation. Thankfully for me, it worked, and I managed to scare the lady to go back to her tent. Next, I dragged the unconscious husband into the noble lady's tent and was faced with yet another problem. I now had unintentionally kidnapped this poor woman and her husband and had no idea what to do with them. I thought of calming her down but failed miserably when I rolled a 3 on persuasion. Meanwhile, Tristan and Brianna had managed to sneak back to our barbarian to come up with another plan, only to notice I wasn't there. They managed to track me all the way to the noble lady's tent, finding me trying to calm down the scared woman. They looked at me, asked what the hell had happened, then sighed in frustration when I explained. They also tried to calm down the lady, but fail as miserably as I did, with things growing even worse when she recognizes our dragonborn barbarian as a known criminal. What happened next is that Brianna intimidated the woman to give us the party invitations, to which she complied. I thought the madness was over until Tristan came up with a truly evil plan. He intimidated the lady twice, first time to convince her to help us infiltrate the wedding, second time to threaten her to not rat us out. Brianna decided to join in and emphasize the point by intimidating her again by pointing a blade at her unconscious husband. Then in the spur of the moment, Ixcan decided to really traumatize her by intimidating her one last time to give us money to buy more elegant clothing. So now our party's going to infiltrate the wedding with me posing as a husband, Brianna is a servant, Tristan is my nephew, and Ixcan is a bodyguard, all while dragging this poor traumatized lady along for the ride. Needless to say, I'm pretty excited for next session. What better villain origin story does this poor woman have? I hope she breaks free from the clutches of these players and uses her wealth and resources to exact her revenge. Sometimes the players are the ones that make their own BBEGs. Please let us know what you think and comment below. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, All Things D&D. Our videos are posted every Tuesday and Friday, so stay tuned for more amazing Dungeons & Dragons content.